Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and stared at the screen. What he saw made no sense at all. The objects floating in space looked like giant crystals. They were bigger than any ship humans had ever built. Light seemed to bend around them in strange ways. "Captain, are you seeing this?" Dr. Amy Collins asked from her station. She was the ship's science officer and had never seen anything like it either. Jake nodded slowly. "How many are there?" 12 ships, sir. Maybe more hiding behind the big one." The Terra's Edge was a human exploration ship. They had been traveling through deep space for 6 months. They were looking for new planets and new resources. They were not looking for aliens. Humans had never met aliens before. "Any signals coming from them?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Lisa Parker looked up from her communication station. "Nothing on our normal channels, Captain. But there's something strange. The computers are picking up some kind of energy pattern." Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of energy?" "I don't know, sir. It's not like anything we've ever seen. It's almost like they're trying to talk to us, but not with radio waves." Commander Ryan Torres, the ship's tactical officer, spoke up. "Captain, should we prepare weapons?" Jake thought about this. The alien ships were much bigger than his ship. If they wanted to fight, humans would probably lose. But maybe they didn't want to fight. Maybe they just wanted to talk. "No weapons yet," Jake said. "Let's see what they want first." Suddenly, the strange energy pattern got stronger. Lisa's computers started making new sounds. Numbers and symbols appeared on her screen. "Captain, I think they're trying to send us a message," Lisa said. Her voice was excited and scared at the same time. Jake looked at the symbols. They meant nothing to him. But slowly the symbols began to change. They became letters. English letters. "How are they doing that?" Amy asked. "They must be learning our language from our computer signals," Lisa said. "They're very smart." The message became clear. "We are Velthara. We seek one human representative for biological assessment and diplomatic evaluation. No harm intended." Jake read the message 3 times. "Biological assessment? What does that mean?" Amy shook her head. "I don't know, Captain. It could mean anything." Ryan stepped closer to Jake. "Sir, this could be a trap. We know nothing about these aliens." Jake knew Ryan was right to be careful. But this was the most important moment in human history. This was first contact with an alien race. Someone had to make a choice. "Send a reply," Jake told Lisa. "Tell them we received their message. Ask them what they want to assess." Lisa typed the message and sent it. The reply came back quickly. "Human neural patterns unique. Required for evaluation against ancient threat. One representative will be returned safely. Trust necessary for both species survival." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Ancient threat? What were these aliens talking about? "Captain," Amy said quietly. "Maybe we should call Earth first. Get instructions." Jake looked at the alien ships again. They hadn't moved closer. They weren't pointing weapons at his ship. They were just waiting. "Earth is 6 months away by communication," Jake said. "By the time we get an answer, these aliens might be gone. Or the ancient threat they mentioned might be here." Another message appeared on Lisa's screen. "Time is limited. Ancient enemy approaches this sector. Human representative must come now or opportunity lost forever." Jake made his decision. "Send a message. Tell them I will come as their representative, and Captain, no," Ryan said. "Let me go instead." "Or me," Amy said. "If they want biological assessment, a scientist would be better." Jake shook his head. "I'm the captain. This is my responsibility. Besides, if something goes wrong, you'll need to get the ship back to Earth to warn everyone." Jake turned to Lisa. "Send the message. Tell them Captain Jake Morrison will be their representative." The reply came fast. "Acceptable. Prepare for transport. Do not resist the energy field." Before anyone could say anything else, Jake felt strange. His body started to feel light. He looked down and saw his hands becoming transparent. "Captain," Amy reached for him, but her hand went right through his arm. "Get the ship back to Earth if I don't return in 24 hours, Jake said. His voice sounded far away, even to himself. "Tell them about the aliens. Tell them about the ancient threat." The bridge of his ship faded away. Jake felt like he was floating through water. Everything was blue and white around him. He couldn't feel his body, but he could still think. Then suddenly he was standing on solid ground again. But it wasn't the ground of his ship. The floor under his feet was smooth and black. It felt warm. The air smelled different, sweet like flowers, but also metallic. Jake looked around. He was in a large room with curved walls. Everything glowed with soft light, but he couldn't see where the light was coming from. Strange symbols moved across the walls like living things. "Welcome, human Jake Morrison." Jake turned toward the voice. What he saw made him forget how to breathe. Standing before him was the most beautiful and terrifying creature he had ever seen. She looked almost human, but not quite. Her skin was pale blue and seemed to shine with its own light. Her hair was white and moved like it was underwater. Her eyes were larger than human eyes and completely silver. But the strangest thing was that she kept changing. Sometimes she looked more human, sometimes less human, like she couldn't decide what shape to be. "I am Princess Zarathul of the Velthara," she said. Her voice was like music, but also like electricity. "Do not fear. You are safe here." Jake tried to speak, but no words came out. The princess smiled. "Your neural patterns are already fascinating. So rigid, so stubborn, this is good. This may be exactly what we need to defeat the convergence." "The convergence?" Jake finally managed to say. The princess's expression became sad and angry at the same time. "The ancient enemy I mentioned. They have been destroying worlds for thousands of years, and now they are coming for yours." Jake stared at Princess Zarathul. Her words about his world being in danger made his heart beat faster. "What do you mean they're coming for Earth?" The princess moved closer to him. Her movements were smooth, like she was floating instead of walking. "The convergence moves through space in a pattern. They take one star system, then move to the next. Your Earth is directly in their path." Jake felt sick. "How long do we have?" "Perhaps 2 of your years. Maybe 3. The princess's form shifted slightly. Her skin became more silver, less blue. "But there may be hope. That is why you are here." Jake looked around the strange room again. The walls were still glowing and the symbols kept moving. "What is this place?" "This is my ship. We call it the Heart of Thought. It responds to Velthara minds." She gestured to the moving symbols. "Those are our thoughts and memories made visible." Made visible? Jake didn't understand. The princess studied his face. "Your species is very different from ours. You think in straight lines. We think in circles and waves. You see only with your eyes. We see with our entire bodies." She raised her hand toward Jake. Her fingers were longer than human fingers and they glowed with soft light. "May I show you?" Jake wasn't sure what she meant, but he nodded. The princess placed her hand near Jake's forehead, not quite touching. Suddenly, Jake felt electricity running across his skin. It didn't hurt, but it felt very strange, like tiny lightning bolts dancing on his arms and chest. "What are you doing?" Jake asked. "I am reading your bioneural patterns," the princess said. "This is how my people understand other beings. We touch their nervous system with energy." The strange feeling got stronger. Jake could feel it moving down his spine and into his legs. It was like the princess was looking inside his brain. "Fascinating," she whispered. "Your thoughts are so solid, so fixed in place. Even under stress, your mind keeps its shape." Jake tried to step back, but the energy field held him in place. "Is this what you meant by biological assessment?" "Yes, I must understand how human minds work." The princess's eyes grew brighter. "For thousands of years, the convergence has defeated every species they encounter. They learn how we think, then they predict everything we will do." The electricity on Jake's skin changed pattern. Now it felt warm instead of cool. "And that's bad?" "Very bad. The convergence is not alive like us. It is a machine intelligence. A computer that has grown to cover entire worlds. It thinks faster than any organic mind." Jake felt the energy probing deeper into his thoughts. It was uncomfortable, like someone reading his diary. "Then how can anyone defeat it?" The princess smiled for the first time since Jake had arrived. "That is what makes humans special. Your minds are rigid in a way that confuses the convergence." "Rigid?" Jake wasn't sure if that was a compliment. "Yes. When my people are threatened, our thoughts become fluid. We adapt and change our thinking. But humans—" The princess paused, concentrating on the energy patterns flowing between them. "Humans become more stubborn, more fixed. You think the same way even when it seems impossible." Jake thought about this. It was true that humans often refused to give up even when giving up made sense. "And that helps somehow?" "The convergence has learned to predict flexible thinking. When a species adapts, the convergence adapts faster. But your species does something the convergence has never seen. You refuse to change your minds even when changing would be logical." The energy around Jake's body suddenly became very strong. He felt like every nerve in his body was connected to the princess. For a moment he could almost sense what she was thinking: fear, sadness, hope, and something else, desperation. "You're afraid," Jake said. The princess nodded. "My people are dying. The convergence has taken most of our worlds. This ship and a few others are all that remain of the Valthara Empire." Jake felt the weight of her words. An entire civilization reduced to a handful of ships. "How many of you are left?" "Perhaps 10,000. Once we numbered in the billions." The princess's form shimmered and became more transparent. "I am the last of my family line. When I die, thousands of years of genetic memory will die with me." The energy field around Jake pulsed with emotion. He could feel the princess's grief like it was his own. "There has to be something we can do. That is what I am trying to determine." The princess increased the energy flow. Jake felt like his thoughts were being pulled apart and examined. "Your neural patterns are unlike anything in our records. So linear, so predictable in some ways, yet completely unpredictable in others." Back on the Terra's edge, Dr. Amy Collins watched her instruments with growing concern. She was monitoring Jake's vital signs through a small transmitter he wore. His heart rate and brain activity showed extreme stress. "Lisa, are you getting any communication from the captain?" Amy asked. Lisa shook her head. "Nothing since the transport. But the energy readings from the alien ship are off the charts." Ryan Torres paced behind them. "We should never have let him go alone. What if they're hurting him?" "The captain made his choice," Amy said. But she was worried too. Jake's brain patterns on her screen looked like nothing she had ever seen. Whatever they're doing to him, it's affecting his entire nervous system. On the alien ship, Jake felt like his mind was being stretched in all directions. The princess was pulling thoughts out of his head that he didn't even know he had. "Remarkable," she said. "You think about problems by building walls around them. My people think by flowing around problems like water. But you break problems into pieces." Jake tried to focus through the strange sensations. "Is that good or bad?" "It may be exactly what we need." The princess's excitement was growing. Jake could feel it through the energy field. "The convergence expects organic minds to think like water. But your mind thinks like a machine, but not like their machine." "I don't understand." The princess began to pull her hand away and the energy field slowly faded. Jake felt like he was waking up from a dream. The convergence thinks in vast connected patterns. Every decision affects every other decision. But humans think in small separate pieces. You solve one problem, then move to the next. Jake rubbed his forehead. He felt dizzy and tired. "And that's useful? It may be the key to everything." The princess's form became more solid and human-like. "The convergence cannot predict thinking that doesn't flow. It cannot adapt to minds that refuse to adapt." Jake looked at her carefully. "You want to use human minds as weapons." "Not weapons, shields." The princess gestured to the walls around them. "If human ships fight alongside Velthra ships, the convergence will not be able to predict the battle patterns. Your rigid thinking will act like rocks in a stream. The water must flow around them." Jake felt a spark of hope, but also fear. "How many human ships would you need?" "All of them," the princess said quietly. "And even then, victory is not certain. The convergence has destroyed species with millions of worlds. Humanity has only one." Jake thought about Earth, about all the people who had no idea that alien machines were coming to destroy them, about his crew waiting on the Terra's edge. "What if we refuse?" Jake asked. The princess's eyes became very sad. "Then in 3 years, both our species will be dead. The convergence will turn Earth into computing material, just like they did to my homeworld." Jake made a decision that would change the course of 2 civilizations. "Then we fight." Princess Zarathul led Jake through corridors that seemed to change as they walked. The walls curved and shifted like they were walking through a living creature. Strange lights pulsed in patterns Jake couldn't understand. "Where are we going?" Jake asked. "To the Chamber of Final Calculations," the princess replied. "It is where our greatest minds gather to plan our last hope of survival." They stopped in front of a wall that looked solid black. The princess placed her hand on it, and the wall dissolved like smoke. Beyond was darkness so complete that Jake couldn't see anything at all. "I can't see in there," Jake said. "That is the point," the princess explained. "Velthara think better without visual distractions. In the dark we can focus all our energy on pure thought." Jake felt nervous. "How will I know where to go?" Follow my voice, and do not worry about falling. The chamber will support you. Jake stepped into the darkness. His feet found solid ground, but he couldn't see it. The princess's hand touched his arm gently, guiding him forward. Welcome, Princess Zarathul, a voice said from somewhere in the darkness. We have been waiting. And this is the human? Another voice asked. Jake couldn't tell where any of the voices were coming from. Yes, the princess said. Jake Morrison of Earth. He carries the neural patterns we need. Jake felt very uncomfortable being discussed like he wasn't there. Hello, he said to the darkness. Several voices responded at once, speaking in the musical language of the Velthara. Then one voice switched to English. Greetings, human Jake Morrison. I am Commander Veltar, leader of our remaining warfleet. The princess tells us your mind thinks differently than ours. I guess so, Jake said. He still couldn't see anything. What exactly do you want me to do? Look at our battle plans, Commander Veltar said. Tell us what you see. Suddenly, the darkness around Jake filled with light, but not normal light. It was like seeing pure information floating in space. Numbers, symbols, and shapes moved in 3 dimensions all around him. Jake tried to understand what he was seeing. Slowly, the patterns began to make sense. They were star maps, ship movements, battle formations. This shows your fights with the Convergence, Jake said. Yes, the commander replied. 37 battles over the past year. We have lost every one. Jake studied the floating information. He could see the Velthara ships moving in beautiful flowing patterns, like a dance in space. The enemy ships moved differently, more rigid but also more predictable. I can see the problem, Jake said. What problem? Princess Zarathul asked. Her voice sounded surprised. You're trying to outthink them, but every time you come up with a new strategy, they learn it and use it against you next time. The darkness filled with excited Velthara voices. Commander Veltar spoke over them. Exactly. The Convergence adapts to every tactic we try. How do we fight an enemy that learns faster than we do? Jake thought about this. On Earth, he had studied military history. He remembered reading about generals who had faced similar problems. Stop trying to be clever, Jake said. The voices in the chamber went silent. Explain, Commander Veltar said. Jake pointed at the floating battle plans, even though no one could see his gesture in the dark. Every one of these battles, you tried something new, something creative, but creativity is what the Convergence expects from organic minds. Then what do you suggest? The princess asked. Do something boring, something so simple and predictable that the Convergence won't believe you're actually doing it. Jake could hear movement in the darkness around him. The Velthara were discussing his idea in their musical language. He caught some words that sounded like disagreement. Commander Veltar spoke again. Simple tactics will not defeat the Convergence. They have superior numbers and firepower. That's not what I mean, Jake said. He tried to think of how to explain human military thinking to aliens. You need to be predictable in one area and completely unpredictable in another. This makes no sense, another voice said from the darkness. Jake felt frustrated. These aliens were very smart, but they thought too much like water. Always flowing, always adapting. Sometimes you needed to think like a rock. Let me show you, Jake said. He reached out toward the floating battle plans and found he could move them with his hands. The strange technology responded to his thoughts. Jake began rearranging the ship formations. He put human ships in straight lines and squares, simple geometric patterns that any computer could predict. Around these formations, he placed Velthara ships in their usual flowing patterns. The human ships act like rocks in a stream, Jake explained. The Convergence will focus on them because they're predictable. But while they're busy calculating how to defeat the rocks, they won't notice what the water is doing around them. Princess Zarathul made an excited sound. The Convergence will try to predict the entire battle based on the human formations. But the human formations are not the real battle plan. Exactly, Jake said. They're a distraction. Commander Veltar's voice became thoughtful. While the Convergence calculates responses to human tactics, our ships could strike from unexpected angles. But this requires perfect coordination, another voice said. Human ships and Velthara ships have never worked together. Jake smiled in the darkness. Then it's time they learned. On the Terra's edge, Commander Ryan Torres was running tactical simulations. Dr. Amy Collins had managed to receive some data from Jake's transmitter, including the battle plans he was working on. This is crazy, Ryan said, looking at his screen. These formations make no tactical sense. Amy studied the data more carefully. Unless the formations aren't meant to win battles by themselves. Look at this pattern. The human ships are positioned to draw enemy fire while the alien ships maneuver around them. Lisa Parker joined them at Ryan's station. I'm getting more signals from the alien ship. It looks like they're trying to send us technical specifications. Specifications for what? Ryan asked. Communication systems. Weapons coordination. They want to link our computers with theirs. Ryan shook his head. That could be dangerous. What if their systems take over our ship? Amy looked at the battle plans again. If Jake's strategy was going to work, human and Valthera ships would need to act as one fleet. Maybe we don't have a choice. If these convergence machines are as dangerous as the aliens say, Earth needs all the help it can get. Back in the chamber of final calculations, Jake continued working on the battle plans. The more he studied convergence tactics, the more worried he became. They're not just conquering worlds, Jake said. They're converting everything into computer material. Yes, Princess Zarathul said sadly. Entire planets become thinking machines. All life is consumed. Jake felt cold. How long does it take? For a world like Earth? Perhaps 6 months. They start with the largest cities and work outward. Commander Veltar's voice became urgent, which is why we must act now. Our scouts report convergence advance ships have already entered your solar system's outer regions. Jake's heart stopped. They're already there? Yes, they are studying your planet's defenses. The main fleet will arrive within months, not years as we first calculated. The floating battle plans around Jake suddenly seemed much more important. This wasn't just about saving the Valthera anymore. This was about saving Earth. How many ships can humanity provide? Commander Veltar asked. Jake thought about Earth's space fleet. Maybe 50 warships, a few hundred smaller vessels. And we have 12 ships remaining, the princess said. 12 ships against a convergence fleet of thousands. Jake looked at the impossible odds floating in the darkness around him. Any sane person would surrender. But humans weren't always sane. Sometimes they were too stubborn to know when they were beaten. Then we better make sure our plan works the first time, Jake said, because we won't get a second chance. 3 weeks later, Jake stood on the bridge of the Heart of Thought and watched the largest space battle in human history begin. Through the ship's viewing ports, he could see the combined human and Valthera fleet taking positions. The human ships looked small and crude next to the elegant Valthera vessels. Earth's warships were built for function, not beauty. Gray metal hulls covered with weapon systems and communication arrays. They moved in straight lines and perfect formations. The Valthera ships seemed to dance between them. Their crystal hulls caught starlight and bent it into rainbow patterns. They moved like living things, flowing around the rigid human formations. The convergence fleet has been detected, Commander Veltar announced. They are approaching from the asteroid belt. Jake felt his stomach tighten. The moment they had all been preparing for was finally here. How many ships? Princess Zarathul checked her instruments. 3,412, plus support craft. Jake tried not to think about those numbers. The combined human Valthera fleet had only 62 ships total. They were outnumbered more than 50 to 1. Jake, the princess said quietly, there is something I must tell you before the battle begins. Jake looked at her. Over the past 3 weeks, he had grown used to her changing appearance. Right now, she looked almost human, but with silver eyes and pale blue skin. What is it? If we lose today, I have prepared a final option. She gestured to a control panel near her station. I can overload my bio-neural system and create an energy pulse that will destroy the convergence command ship. Jake felt cold. That would kill you? Yes, but it might give your species time to prepare better defenses. Jake stepped closer to her. No, we talked about this. There has to be another way. The princess smiled sadly. You are very kind, Jake Morrison. But kindness will not save our peoples. Maybe not. But stubbornness might. Jake turned back to the tactical display. We stick to the plan. No sacrifices unless there's absolutely no other choice. On the Terra's edge, Commander Ryan Torres coordinated the human fleet. The ship had been fitted with Valthera communication systems that allowed him to speak directly with alien commanders. All human ships, this is Torres, form defensive pattern Alpha. Remember, we're the rocks in the stream. Hold your positions no matter what. Lieutenant Lisa Parker monitored the combined communication network. Human voices mixed with the musical tones of Valthera commanders. It should have been chaos, but somehow it worked. Ryan, I'm getting readings on the Convergence fleet, Dr. Amy Collins reported. They're huge. Each ship is at least twice the size of our largest cruiser. Ryan studied his screens. The enemy ships looked nothing like human or Valthera vessels. They were dark gray cubes and spheres, covered in geometric patterns. No beauty, no style, just pure function. All ships, enemy contact in 2 minutes, Ryan announced. Execute battle plan, Stubborn Rock. Jake smiled despite his fear. Ryan had named their strategy after a joke Jake made during planning. Human ships would be stubborn rocks, refusing to move or change tactics. Valthera ships would be flowing water, adapting around them. The Convergence ships came into weapons range. They moved in perfect mathematical formations. Every ship knew exactly where every other ship would be at every moment. It was like watching a computer calculation made visible. They're targeting the human ships first, Princess Zarathul observed. Just as predicted, Jake nodded. The Convergence had studied human military tactics and knew how to counter them. What they didn't know was that the human formations were just a mask for the real battle plan. Beginning assault, Commander Veltar announced. The space around the asteroid belt erupted in light. Hundreds of energy weapons fired at once. The Convergence ships focused their attacks on the human formations, trying to break through their defensive lines. The human ships took terrible damage, but they held their positions. Captain Ben Hughes of the cruiser New York reported over the communication network. We're taking heavy fire but maintaining formation. Shields at 60%. While the Convergence concentrated on the human ships, the Valthera vessels moved like ghosts through the battlefield. They appeared behind enemy ships, fired their crystal weapons, then vanished into new positions before the Convergence could respond. It's working, Jake said with amazement. They can't track the Valthera ships because they're too busy calculating responses to our formations. But the battle was far from over. The Convergence began adapting to the new tactics faster than expected. Enemy ships started ignoring some human vessels and pursuing Valthera ships instead. Jake, the princess said urgently, they're learning our strategy. Jake watched the tactical display as Convergence ships broke away from their mathematical formations. They were becoming unpredictable, which was exactly what Jake had hoped to avoid. All ships, implement pattern variation 7, Jake announced over the communication network. This was the part of the plan that made Jake most nervous. Human ships would have to break formation and move to new positions, but in a way that looked accidental, rather than planned. The human fleet began to scatter. To the Convergence, it looked like their formations were breaking under pressure. But Jake knew better. Each random movement had been carefully planned to position human ships exactly where the Valthera needed them. Captain Hughes reported again. New York taking position near Asteroid Cluster 7. Looks like we're retreating, but we're right where we need to be. The Valthera ships use the new human positions as cover and staging areas. They could hide behind asteroids, coordinate attacks, and disappear again before the Convergence could respond. Enemy command ship identified, Commander Veltar announced. It's the large sphere in the center of their formation. Jake looked at the tactical display. The Convergence command ship was enormous, easily 10 times larger than any other vessel in the battle. That was where all the enemy coordination was coming from. If we could destroy that ship, would the others be confused? Jake asked. Princess Zarathul considered this. For a time, yes. But they would quickly establish a new command structure. How quickly? Perhaps 10 minutes. Maybe 15. Jake made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Then we hit it with everything we have. One massive coordinated strike. Commander Veltar's voice came over the communication system. That ship is heavily defended. We would lose most of our fleet trying to reach it. Not if we do it right, Jake said. He began adjusting the tactical display, showing a new formation. All human ships form a spearhead formation directly toward the command ship. Every Convergence vessel will move to intercept us. Princess Zarathul understood immediately. And while they're busy destroying the human spearhead, our ships attack the command ship from behind. Exactly. The Convergence will think we're making a desperate final charge. They won't expect us to use it as a distraction for the real attack. Ryan Torres received Jake's new orders with growing alarm. Captain Morrison wants us to do what? Amy Collins checked the tactical data twice. Fly straight at the biggest enemy ship while they shoot at us. He's using the entire human fleet as bait. Lisa Parker looked up from her station. "Sir, we're receiving support from the alien ships. They're going to follow us in." Ryan made the hardest decision of his military career. All human ships form spearhead formation. Target the enemy command ship. And Lisa, tell Captain Morrison that if this doesn't work, I'm going to haunt him personally. The human fleet turned toward the Convergence command ship and began their charge. Every enemy weapon focused on them. Ships began taking critical damage almost immediately, but behind the Convergence fleet, 12 Valthera ships appeared out of nowhere. Their crystal weapons struck the command ship's defenses with perfect coordination. Princess Zarathul watched the attack with satisfaction. "Your plan is working, Jake. The command ship's shields are failing." Jake felt a moment of hope. Then he saw something on the tactical display that made his blood freeze. "Princess, look at the command ship's energy readings." She looked, and her face became pale. That's not possible. The Convergence command ship wasn't just being destroyed. It was overloading, building up energy for something much worse than weapons fire. "They're going to explode the entire asteroid belt," Princess Zarathul whispered. "If that energy pulse hits our ships." Jake realized that victory might cost them everything. But sometimes that's what winning required. Jake stared at the tactical display as the Convergence command ship's energy levels climbed higher and higher. The massive vessel was turning itself into a bomb that would destroy everything within a light year. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. Princess Zarathul's fingers moved over her control panel. 4 minutes. Maybe 5. When it explodes, the energy wave will turn all matter in this system into computing material. Jake felt sick. They had come so close to victory, only to face something worse than defeat. "Can our ships get far enough away?" "No. The fastest ships might reach minimum safe distance in 8 minutes. We need twice as long." Commander Veltar's voice came over the communication system. "All ships, emergency retreat. Maximum speed away from the command ship." Jake watched as human and Velthera vessels turned and tried to flee, but he could see from the numbers that they wouldn't make it. The explosion would catch them all. "There has to be something we can do," Jake said. The princess looked at him with sad silver eyes. "There is one possibility. Someone must fly directly into the command ship's energy core and disrupt it manually." Jake understood immediately. The pilot wouldn't survive. No. And the electromagnetic fields around the core are so intense that only a human nervous system could survive the approach. Valthera bioelectric systems would overload and fail. Jake looked at the tactical display one more time. All those ships, all those people, human and Valthera alike, they would all die unless someone stopped the explosion. "Get me a ship," Jake said. "No." The princess stepped between Jake and the exit. "I will not allow it. You said it yourself. Only a human can survive the approach." I lied. The princess's form began to change, becoming less human and more alien. A human alone would die before reaching the core, but a human consciousness linked with a Valthera consciousness might survive. Jake felt hope and fear at the same time. "What do you mean?" "I can merge my bioneural patterns with yours. Create a hybrid awareness. Your rigid thinking patterns would protect us from the electromagnetic chaos. My adaptive patterns would handle the real-time adjustments needed to navigate the energy fields." Jake understood what she was offering, and what it would cost her. "You don't know if you'd survive something like that." "I know I will not survive the explosion if we do nothing." The princess moved to her command station. "The choice is simple. Certain death for everyone or possible death for 2 people. Jake made his decision. "Do it." Princess Zarathul began working at her controls. "I am configuring my ship for the approach. The heart of thought is fast enough to reach the command ship in time." Jake felt the ship around them begin to change. The organic wall shifted and flowed, creating new shapes. Weapon systems extended from hidden compartments. The ship was transforming itself into something built for one purpose: penetration of enemy defenses. "Jake, I need you to understand something," the princess said as she worked. "When I link our consciousness, you will experience some of my memories. Thousands of years of Valthera history. It may be overwhelming." "I'll manage," Jake said, though he wasn't sure that was true. The princess finished her preparations and turned to face him. "Are you ready?" Jake nodded. The princess placed both hands near his head, not quite touching. Jake felt the familiar tingle of bioelectric energy, but much stronger than before. Then the energy flowed into his mind, and Jake's world exploded. Suddenly, he could see and feel things that had happened long before he was born. The princess's memories flowed through his consciousness like a river of light. He saw the Velthera homeworld before the convergence came. Beautiful crystal cities floating in purple skies. Millions of beings living in harmony with their planet's natural energy fields. He saw the first convergence ships arriving. Dark cubes that began consuming everything they touched, turning living worlds into computing material. He felt the princess's grief as her family died fighting the invaders. But Jake also felt something else flowing into his mind. The princess was experiencing his memories too. She saw Earth through his eyes. Blue oceans, green forests, white clouds, cities full of stubborn humans who refused to give up even when giving up made sense. "It's working," the princess whispered. Her voice sounded different now, like it was coming from inside Jake's head. "I can feel your neural patterns strengthening mine." The heart of thought accelerated toward the convergence command ship. Through the ship's sensors, Jake could see the massive vessel growing larger and larger. Energy danced across its surface in patterns that hurt to look at. "Energy core detected," the princess said. "We need to reach the center of the ship." Jake felt his hybrid consciousness take control of the ship's flight systems. His human spatial reasoning combined with the princess's intuitive understanding of energy patterns. Together, they navigated through the storm of electromagnetic chaos surrounding the command ship. The ship's hull began to heat up as they approached the energy core. Warning signals flashed throughout the bridge. Jake felt pain in his nervous system as the intense fields tried to overload his human brain, but the princess's consciousness flowed around the pain, protecting him. Her adaptive patterns shifted and changed, finding safe pathways through the energy storm. "Almost there," Jake said through gritted teeth. They punched through the final barrier and found themselves inside the command ship's core. It was a sphere of pure energy, growing brighter every second. Jake could see the detonation sequence in the patterns of light. 3 minutes until explosion. "Now what?" Jake asked. "Now we disrupt the containment field," the princess replied, but carefully. "Too much force and we trigger the explosion early. Too little and nothing happens." Jake felt their linked consciousness working together, his methodical thinking breaking the problem into steps. Her flowing awareness finding the exact points where pressure needed to be applied. The heart of thought extended energy projectors and began carefully destabilizing the containment field. The sphere of energy flickered and began to shrink. "It's working," the princess said with excitement. But something went wrong. The containment field began to collapse too quickly. Instead of safely dissipating, the core energy was imploding on itself. "We need to get out of here," Jake said. "Too late," the princess replied. "The implosion will destroy us before we can escape." Jake felt their hybrid consciousness making a desperate choice. Instead of trying to flee, they would contain the implosion with their ship's energy systems. "It would destroy the heart of thought, but it might save the fleet." "Princess, no," Jake said. "There has to be another way." "Sometimes there is no other way," she replied. "Sometimes sacrifice is the only choice." But Jake's stubborn human nature refused to accept this. Even as the energy implosion grew around them, he kept thinking. There had to be a solution they hadn't considered. Then he saw it. A pattern in the energy flow that his linear thinking could exploit. If they couldn't contain the implosion, maybe they could redirect it. "Princess, look at the energy matrix. See that spiral pattern?" She saw it immediately. "If we align our ship's energy field with that spiral, we can turn the implosion into a controlled discharge, channel all the energy harmlessly into space." Working together, their hybrid consciousness performed the most complex energy manipulation in galactic history. Jake's rigid thinking provided the stable framework. The princess's adaptive patterns handled the constant adjustments needed to maintain the redirection. The implosion became a controlled release. Vast amounts of energy flowed safely away from the battle zone and dissipated in empty space. When it was over, Jake found himself lying on the bridge floor. The princess knelt beside him, her form flickering between human and alien appearances. "Are you all right?" she asked. Jake tried to sit up and found that his head felt strange, like it was too full of thoughts that weren't his own. "I think so. What about you?" The princess smiled, but Jake could see that something had changed in her eyes. "I am different. Some of my consciousness remains linked with yours. I can feel your thoughts even now." Jake realized he could feel hers too. It was like having a second set of thoughts running parallel to his own. Strange but not unpleasant. The command ship. Jake asked, destroyed. The rest of the Convergence fleet is retreating in disorder. They will need time to establish new command protocols. Jake managed to stand up. Through the ship's viewing ports, he could see human and Valthera vessels regrouping. They had won, but at a cost neither species fully understood yet. Over the next few weeks, as the combined fleet returned to Earth, Jake learned to live with his new hybrid consciousness. He carried fragments of Valthera memory and knowledge, while Princess Zarathul retained aspects of human linear thinking. Captain Ben Hughes took command of the Terra's Edge and established the first joint human Valthera research station. Scientists from both species worked together to understand convergence technology and develop better defenses. Dr. Amy Collins made an important discovery while studying the battle data. The convergence isn't just one enemy. It's a network of connected machine intelligences spread across the galaxy. Defeating one fleet won't stop them permanently. But Jake wasn't worried about permanent solutions. Humans specialized in impossible problems and stubborn refusal to give up. With Valthera adaptive thinking supporting human determination, he believed they